Joining us for our Emmys contenders panel for production design is Misty Buckley from the Little Mermaid Live. Misty, thank you for being here. How did you get involved with the Little Mermaid Live? This is a huge undertaking.
Yeah. Well, I've worked with some of the team before. I've worked with Hamish Hamilton before, and Done and Dusted, and Raj Kapoor. So when they asked me to do it, I was like, it was just a no-brainer. It was so such an incredible invitation to do something for TV that is so narrative based and beautiful and whimsical. So it was a really exciting invitation.
Where do you start with this ambitious project? Because it's a hybrid of, the animated film, and then you come in with the live musical numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one to really balance, because it's been there've been so many versions of it, and it's doing justice to a story that's so well loved and bringing something different to it, to the story. When it's been appeared, it's been on Broadway, there's been films, and there's been so many versions of it, and how do you bring something to that? So it was quite we had to kind of break it down a bit into the different things we wanted to achieve, because to do those transitions from, we're going to be really tricky out of an animation into live action without bursting the bubble, because that's your main that was our main issue, was how do we make that feel seamless, and how do we make it feel part of the magical story that we're trying to tell. So we looked at those transitions very early on, and how we could get them to flow. And so the moment where the fish is thrown over the side of the ship, and then we move into the film, that was a really lovely moment. So we just tried to get those details really, really thought about how we were going to execute those details. And yeah, I think it worked. It was tough though. Some didn't work, and we had to try other things. But it was a real exploration. It was a really good thing to be able to figure out with an amazing team. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, so what were some of the things that you came up that didn't work out as well, and you had to adjust?
Well, it's like when you're trying to. We found that you needed some kind of portal in a way. So it helped with a frame. So in part of your world, when you come out and you see her from above in the cave, that came out really well. And we tried when we didn't, in the design phase, we tried lots of things like, do we need a full 3D scenic element here, and how are we going to suspend that over people's heads without them seeing it? And so there were lots of we tried lots of different ways of probably over ambitious at times to how we were going to do those transitions, but in the end sometimes the simplest idea was just the best, by doing plates or something like that, something really simple and beautiful and elegant, and it worked really well, the old film techniques. So yeah, that was one that could have been very cumbersome and ended up being a really lovely moment. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, this set is basically just the stage, and you have the runway, which looks like a wave, but how do you go about adding depth to such a limited space? Is it just a matter of having like the screen in the background where you could just put up like images from like under the sea, and then incorporating actual objects onto the stage?
Yeah, I mean, we had to do justice to the film, but the color palette in the film is somewhat limited, and we wanted to create, and some of it's not as hasn't got as much depth as, say, the of the animation. It hasn't got as much depth as, you know, the beautiful, the movie. So what we did was we played with scale a lot. So for instance, in Part of Your World, we had oversized objects and we had smaller objects, and we played with the scale of all the items in her cave, as well as adding depth to the, you know, with the LED screen. That helped, but we worked so hard to get that right and to get the colors right. And also because Raj did the content as well, and we did lots of filming of the objects that we'd had made and making sure that they were correct in the back of shot and in the LED content. So it was a really fine balance, and then the staging as well coming from that. So it was a fine balance between all the different textures and finishes and colors, and it was, and knowing that ultimately it was going to be seen by people live and they were going to experience it and try and have, you know, and have an emotional connection to it, as well as it being filmed. So it was trying to have all hats on and play all different elements and get that balance right. But mostly it was to do with scale and the finish. We had an extraordinary group of an extraordinary team of scenic artists, and their finish was unbelievable. So they did a lot of the work of balancing that as well, and they would come and work live with the screen content up, and we could get that balance right.
Mm-hmm. You also had a lot of like puppetry in the
Yeah.
whole production, especially like under the sea. There's just a lot of undersea creatures that you use for puppets. So how was it like incorporating those and like keeping those in mind when you were designing the set for that number and like some of the other ones too? But that one I remember, just there's so many puppets.
Yeah, and so we designed a stage, like a giant kind of, we call it like a modular rock, and it had to do everything. It had to house loads of puppeteers. It had to be able to have special effects come out of it. It had to be able to be much bigger, and it had to kind of reduce right down to like small intimate moments. And then it had to turn around and become a giant sort of French oven and set of stairs for Les Poissons. So it was just like there was a lot of like making puzzles and making things fit. You know, we did a lot of model making with it and figuring out how we were going to get people in, but then they needed to exit at the right moment. And so that was that was definitely a real challenge. But it was also, the puppeteers are so professional and so used to doing what they do that they knew exactly the amount of space they would need, and it was really amazing to work with them because they were able to really they were really helpful and really able to give us a lot of information, and they were really collaborative. So it was a really fantastic it was a fantastic process, but definitely there was a lot of working out of how they would fit and where they would go, and their cues and their light, making sure they had enough light, and it was a definite puzzle.
Were there any mishaps when you guys did it live, or was it just kind of it looked seamless when it
yeah. Well, you know, when you work on a production like that and you have really the very best of people in the industry, and also everyone was so emotionally invested in it because it was a story and a moment that really touched everybody who was working on it, and they felt like everybody gave it 100%. And so the mishaps were very few actually, because everyone was well rehearsed, and I think we were really we were really lucky on that.
Well, lastly, would you do another one of these, and if so, which Disney movie would you pick?
Oh my goodness, I would do million of these. Which Disney movie? I mean, my favorite Disney movie is Moana, but I don't know how you do it live, but I think you'd have to do some kind of, yeah,
you need a lot more water.
Yeah, you need a lot more water, but also I think you need to, yeah, how would you do that? That would be a good one. But yeah, I think you'd have to do some kind of promenade theatre type experience or something. But I mean, they are all just a dream. I would do any of them, I think, because when you start looking at them and you start watching them with a view to how you would do it, it becomes a really amazing challenge of how, you know, how you could turn that into something that got its own, it's got its own another level. I think that's what's been so interesting, is it's been done in so many different ways, and it was a really, we were really lucky to be able to cross through boundaries of different medium, and that was, yeah, that was great.
You need to start talking to ABC right now to pitch it for Moana.
Yeah.
Misty, it was great speaking with you. We'll see you back here in a little bit for the group panel.
Okay, thanks very much.